Hi everyone, my name is Katie and I'm a primary school teacher from the UK. I've been teaching both in the UK and also abroad for the last 6.5 years. And in those 6.5 years, I have done a lot of lesson planning, which is why I decided to focus today's video on lesson planning and try to give you some tips and tricks and ways in which I have found have helped me to manage my time and try to make the process a little bit easier. Before I properly get started on this video, I need to add in some self-promotion, which is something I'm not very good at and I know I need to get better at. But I did recently write a teaching guide all about your first year of teaching, and there are lots of tips and tricks in there about classroom management, setting up your new classroom, lots of questions that you might have about what teaching is like and what to expect during your first year of teaching. It is available right now. If you would like to get yourself a copy, I will leave all the details in the description box of this video. Also, why not open this up and turn it into a competition as well? If you would like to win yourself one of 3 free copies of my guide, just leave a comment down below and I will choose 3 different winners and I will send a copy of the teaching guide to them. I'm not bothered about what your comment is. It could be a question, it could be a tip for someone, it could just be a quick hello, and I will select the 3 winners of the competition on Valentine's Day 2020 because that is my birthday and I know I won't forget that day, and I will set a reminder on my phone as well and I will choose someone from the comments. So if you want to be in with a chance of winning, please leave me a little comment down below and good luck. So the first thing I want to talk about before I go into sort of the tips and the ideas that might help you to save time is my own personal journey with lesson planning. What I think is so important for you to know if you are a trainee teacher or you are thinking about teaching or you have recently qualified and just started teaching is that it used to take me a very long time to plan lessons. And I'm thinking back to university and I'm thinking back to when I was teaching the occasional lesson at the start of my teaching placements, and I feel as though it was taking me several hours to put together a lesson plan. I remember overthinking so many different parts of the planning process. I remember overthinking the resources that I might need, the structure of the lesson, the grouping of the children, the presentation that would always go hand in hand with every lesson, because if I didn't have one I used to panic and think I would forget what I was doing. I feel like the whole process put together was extremely exhausting and it took a very long time to do. I'm going to take you now to where I am right now with my skill and my ability to plan lessons, and I'm going to be incredibly honest because I feel as though there are a lot of trainee teachers watching this who need to hear this. I now find planning lessons to be very easy. I am thankfully not at a school that expects me to provide reams and reams of typed information alongside my lesson planning, which of course is very helpful for me and my time management. But as far as it goes with thinking up lessons and knowing how the lesson will go and resourcing a lesson, it is very quick now. And I've written an example here to try and explain to you what I mean. If you had said to me when I was doing my NQT year that I needed to plan a lesson for year 4 on measurement, it would have taken me a really long time to figure out how to do that. I would have had to have looked at the curriculum, looked at the strands, looked at the lessons, probably gone online and searched for ideas, maybe asked some people around me what they had done, and it would have just taken a very long time for me to figure all of that out. And what I want you to know now from this video is that if somebody came into my classroom and said, we need you to cover a class in 10 minutes, we need you to teach measurement to year 4 students, I could create that lesson in like 10 seconds. I would just know instantly inside my head what I was going to do. And I know that sounds like, for some of you it may sound really far in the future, like how could that ever be the case? But it does happen, or at least it has happened for me, and I really hope it happens for you as well, because I feel so confident now. I just know what I would do. I have a structure ready in my head because I've taught it before and I've taught it on continuous years for 6 different years maybe, and I just know how that lesson looks and I know what I want the achievement to be at the end of that lesson, and I know what the structure would look like, and I have ideas for groupings and I have ideas for independent tasks and group work tasks. I could dream that up pretty quickly. I mean, it wouldn't be the best lesson, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be observation worthy, like ticks all the boxes lesson, but I could create something pretty quickly now, and I feel as though the way that you get to that stage is by practicing, and it's by believing that you will get to that stage, because I never believed that I would get here. I never thought I would feel so confident teaching that I could walk into an unfamiliar classroom and just create a lesson on demand. And obviously that doesn't happen very often, so that isn't often put to the test. But I do feel as though I could walk into work in the morning with nothing planned for the day and create some pretty good lessons for my students. If I had half an hour to plan in the morning, I feel like I could put together a really good day. I don't normally work like that. Normally I have a skeleton plan for the week. I normally know which lessons I'm teaching where. I don't normally drum stuff up 5 minutes before I start teaching it, but I can do, and I do sometimes. That is something that I feel as though is important to share, because I get so many questions from people asking, will I ever get good at planning lessons? Why does it take me so long? I just never have any ideas. How do I think of ideas for lessons? And actually that brings me on to my how section, which is how did I get to this stage of confidence with my planning? Number one is I built a bank of resources, and I did this starting in my teacher training, and I have the same bank of resources now that has brought me all the way up into my 7th year of teaching. And the bank of resources is split into different subjects. So I have a folder for maths, which is then split up further into different parts of the curriculum. So I have shape, I have measurement, I have decimals, I have addition and subtraction, place value, and I've made a lot of my own resources, things that I've developed over the years and changed. I also have other people's things in there. I've done a lot of sharing with different teacher partnerships that I've been put in, and I've created resources with different teams before, so I've kind of put those all in there as well. Honestly, I don't use this drive very much anymore, because a lot of the time the lessons that I teach have minimal resources, because a lot of them are based on discussion or student-led inquiry. However, it's there, and I know it's there, and it kind of stops me from panicking and worrying. So for example, if I know I'm teaching decimals next week, I know I need to get some stuff ready. I could look in my file and I'm going to see there's 5 or 6 different lessons ready there for me to teach, and then I can edit them depending on the class that I've got and what their needs are and what their ability is. And even though it might feel really time consuming at the start to be creating and saving stuff into this drive, like, you're going to have that, and it's always going to be there just in case. If you have an interview in the future and the interview say, you know, we want you to come up with a grammar lesson on personification or something, like, you've got your file. Don't let anyone tell you that it's a waste of time to make things at the start, because a lot of people used to tell me that. They used to say, in fact, one of my mentor teachers said to me, she said, you'll never have time to make any of your own resources when you start teaching, so why are you bothering now? And I remember thinking, well, because I can teach this lesson better if I have ownership of it, and creating this resource is useful for me, and it helps me to learn about the topic I'm teaching to resource it. So we didn't really reach an agreement there, but it's been useful for me. The next one is to use ideas of others and to observe good practice. I have spent a lot of time observing the teaching of other teachers, and it is the most useful thing that you can do. And I know that it feels as though any free time that you have, you want to mark books, you want to make assessments, you want to make resources, you want to catch up on whatever it is that you've got on your list that needs doing. But I would highly recommend using some of your time to go and observe other teachers. For example, if you get PPA time or NQT time, or you've just got a little hour free on your teacher training, ask to go and observe some other teachers teaching. The reason I'm good at lesson planning now is because I have seen different lessons being taught in so many different ways, and so many different year groups, and so many different ways of resourcing and ways of grouping students and ways for students to present their ideas. And I've learned all of that from observation, and I've been very lucky with the opportunities that I've had to watch different people over the years. I always learn something when I go to see another person teach. I always find myself picking up new ideas, or realizing that their ideas are not something I want to use, and you know, it kind of consolidates the ideas that I have about my own teaching. Also, try teaching someone else's planning. If you're in a school where the planning is saved on a system and you can access that planning and you can view it, as long as there's not a rule that says you're not allowed to look at it, which I doubt there is, pull up some of their plans, have a look at them, see, you know, how are different teachers organizing their starters, how are different teachers organizing their classroom management. Are there some really good ideas for, you know, summarizing and concluding a lesson in there that you can take inspiration from? There might even be links to resources on there that you can use, and it's good to share things like that because I think it's more useful. Figure out your own planning style. Everybody plans in different ways. You will find some people like to type lots lots and lots and lots and have almost a script ready for their lesson where they know what every single step of the lesson is going to be. Then you'll find some people are really free and they want to just see how the lesson goes. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Like, I have an expectation of where things are going to head. At the same time, I'm not typing reams and reams of information because I don't find that useful either. Even on this right here, I've just got some very basic bullet points and notes to work from because I quite like to improvise. So you have to figure out what your style is as a teacher as well. I would also say a big change in the way that I plan versus how I used to plan when I first started teaching is the order in which I arrange the lesson. When I first started teaching, I thought it was very important to start the lesson planning with the start of the lesson. Like, what is the first thing I'm going to ask the children to do? What will the next step be? What will the next step be? And I used to organize my ideas chronologically. Now, if I'm planning a lesson, the first thing that I do is I think about the conclusion and I think about the end of the lesson. When I reach the end of this lesson, what do I want my students to have achieved? And I think it's so much easier to open your planning with a question like that or a statement that says what the end goal is. So let's imagine that I was just teaching 3D shapes to a year 3 class and I was looking at a week's worth of planning because I've maybe got a medium term plan or a long term plan depending on how the school works. But let's imagine I'm looking at it as a week-to-week basis, which is usually how I operate anyway. I find it really hard to imagine what I'm doing in 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. I find that really difficult. I've got so many things to think about. I would probably start out by boxing up ideas for the week. What is it I want to achieve? And thinking about that backwards planning, like what is it I want to have achieved by the end of the week? I will use the curriculum guidelines to help me with that, or whatever it is that your school works from. Then I will try to figure out what the children already know. I think a lot of the mistakes that people make with planning is they spend a really long time crafting a beautiful plan for 2 weeks. You might find out that the students already know everything and the planning is far too easy for them, but you might also find that it's far too difficult and they can't access the learning. Then you end up having to redo the plan completely. So it's better to get an idea of where they're at first anyway. For example, I've put down Monday. I'm gonna just give out a ton of 3D shapes, just put them around the classroom, let the children play with them, let them explore them, just let them have a nice time playing with some 3D shapes, even if they're older children. You know, there's no harm in just giving them some time to build and giving them some time to communicate and talk to each other about what they've got. While they're doing that, I am probably going to be making a note of the language that they use, the questions that they generate, and any misconceptions that I hear while they're talking about the shapes. That gives you so much insight, just kind of watching children explore. It really helps to figure out where they're at and where they need to head. And you can do that with any subject. You could do that with persuasive writing. You could just give them a load of examples of persuasive letters and just give them time to highlight them and explore them and which points do you think are important and what do you think the genre might be. And you can do that with poetry. You can give them a load of different types of poems and say, what do you notice? What do you see a lot? And I always start by just letting the children explore pretty much regardless of what I'm teaching. I think it's the best way to start any new unit. On the Tuesday, I might have the students sorting and organising the shapes. Hopefully I will be able to give them some freedom with that as well. How would you categorise these? Can you think of a way to organise these and what makes them different and what makes them the same? And you know, would a Venn diagram be useful, or do you have a different way that you would like to organise this? I might have them working in some groups and they might present their ideas back. Perhaps on the Wednesday or the Thursday, I might start them off with some problem solving. I might get them to do some disproving or proving of ideas that they generated. For example, I heard you saying this the other day. Could you prove that this is true? Coming to the end of the week, given that they've presented their ideas and maybe generated some new ideas, they might have the opportunity to answer some questions related to the topic. Questions in the style of maybe what a test would expect them to know. We don't want to teach to the test. We don't want to literally teach the questions, but if you are working in a school that does have some test expectations of the students, it might be really nice to let them have a go at answering some questions that relate, or even better, getting them to generate some of their own questions about the learning that they have done throughout the week. Chances are you're going to be teaching this particular unit for the next couple of weeks anyway, so take some time to evaluate evaluate and decide, do you need to go back? Have they kind of got this enough for you to go on to the next step, or do you think you might need to revisit something? I always like to say that if something is done and you've kind of done it to death and the children have got it, there's no point hanging around to get them on to the next thing, because I think a lot of the time, if somebody has planned 3 weeks of something and they get it done in 1 week, they're worrying and thinking, you know, oh, what am I going to do with the next 2 weeks? But there's always projects you can do. There's always ways for children to take their learning further. I would say that that is a very, very basic overview of how I might like to take the learning during the week. I hope that by listening to me talk kind of about the process of planning and the way that I have developed myself over the last couple of years has been useful for you. Even if the only thing that you've truly taken from this video is the fact that it will get easier and that I truly believe you will get so much more confident at this. If that's all you've taken, that's fine. I know that planning is a huge thing, and that's why I'm finding it so hard to make content about planning, because I still don't really know what to hone in on and what the most difficult thing is for people that watch these videos. So if you do have any suggestions for ways that I can truly make it more accessible for trainee teachers and qualified teachers to understand, I would love to, but I just can't figure it out at the moment. So please let me know what would be useful. If this video has been useful for you in any way, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribing to 4Teachers also really helps me to build this channel. And please also go and follow me over on Instagram at 4Teachers, where I post lots of tips and tricks and photographs and nice things from my daily teaching life. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you again on the next video.